What is going on, Bucs fans? We are back here again at Pirate Parlay Podcast. I'm your host, JC Allen. We're on the Sick Podcast Network, and there's some news to get to. Bucs made a signing on the coaching side of the ball and on the offensive side of the ball. The draft is right around the corner. 30 visits are starting to happen. We've got 3 of them that we know about, not including everything that's leading up. We're going to get more 30 visits. We're going to get more mock drafts. We're going to get more of an idea of where the Bucs might go at pick 19. We'll get into some of those prospects too. If you guys want to look at somebody, we'll talk about somebody. We'll go over my mock draft as well that I had. I got some clips I want to show you guys from that Bucs Cruise as well. We'll get into all that and more after the break. Stay tuned.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Got it on the other side. Again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another edition of the Pirate Parlay Podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network. Everyone who's here live, do me a favor, like, subscribe, turn notifications. If you're watching on Twitter, welcome. Head or X, whatever we're calling it. Head on over to YouTube. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Everyone listening via podcast format, Spotify, Apple, whatever you're listening to, appreciate you guys as well. Come join the live sometime. We're here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But let's jump into some of the housekeeping. The Bucs did make an addition to their roster. At this point, anyone who's brought in is on a very veteran salary benefit minimum contract type deal where they are not guaranteed everything, no matter the quality of the player. Probably until after the draft or a surprising guy comes available, whether that's release or trade. The Bucs are in a pretty good spot. Obviously, they added depth to the defensive side of the ball. They brought in cornerback, re-signed Bryce Hall, brought in cornerback like Kindle Vildor from the Lions, brought in Anthony Walker from the Dolphins. They lost Justin School on the offensive side, but signed Charlie Heck, who's got a heck of a mustache, to replace him. And, when you looked at the roster, it still felt kind of weak along the interior. Now, I know they've got Ben Bredeson, who is very versatile. They signed him to be his left guard to a 3-year, $22 million contract. In case of emergency, break glass, he can play center. He can play right guard. He can kind of play all along the interior. Obviously, you're moving, but if something happened to Barton, went down, you could slide Bredeson over. But the question then, who do you slide into that spot? The Bucs are very high in Elijah Klein, who they drafted in the 6th round last year. He seemed like a Bucs guy right from the interview when we talked to him on draft night, and he fit in really well, and his development behind the scenes has gone really well at both interior spots. And again, he can punch outside to tackle in a pinch like he did in the preseason game, although it's not his forte. But along the interior, he's pretty versatile as well. But again, 0 career starts, coming to a 2nd year, 6th round draft pick. Not that, the Bucs have any experience with the 6th round draft pick who've overcome all the odds to be one of the greatest players in the world. Pats had him first. Tampa Bay got him second, but that's Mr. Tom Brady. So 6th round picks can still become people of importance on rosters and in the league. But still, that lack of experience, there was a question mark heading into the draft weekend, heading into the season. They shored that up by re-signing Sua Opeta. He was brought in last year to compete with Ben Bredeson for the starting left guard. All indications were early on in the competition as Sua had the upper hand. They started switching, back and forth throughout the practices. And as soon as training camp started that first week, he went down with a torn ACL, lost for the season. Bredeson got it by de facto. And here we are now a year later where Sua Opeta is getting a veteran salary benefit minimum contract, and Ben Bredeson's $22 million richer if he plays out the 3 years on his deal. So it's kind of bittersweet because that could have been Sua Opeta. But what he does is he provides you a level of comfort and level of depth with starting experience. Not a ton. He's only started 10 or 12 games, I believe. But he's a guy who they're comfortable with. They were comfortable with competing for the left guard spot last season. So if something did happen to Barton, God forbid, Bredeson could slide to center. And now you have someone with an experience. And that's not to say that they still don't draft somebody, because I still think that's an option. Best player available is going to be their motto in this draft. And they set themselves up to do so. name kind of the players that they brought in for depth purposes, but Hassan Reddick at the edge, that was a big signing, re-signing Chris Godwin as well, bringing Levante back. The Bucs are pretty much heading into the draft right now with no major area of concern or need. Sure, there's spots where they can improve the depth and maybe improve a starter as well, but there's no real concerns of need. And Sua Opeta, I thought, was the last kind of piece of the puzzle. I still look at safety maybe, but they do have versatile guys like Izzian and Tyke Smith, who's reportedly going to make that switch there, according to Coach Bowles, full time. You got Kayvon Merriweather, who came on, and they do like two of the young safeties that are on the roster, and Rashad Wisdom and Marcus Banks, who are with them as undrafted free agents all throughout training camp, and through the season on the practice squad. But to me, that's the last kind of spot where I look at it. It's like, it'd be nice to have someone with, significant starting experience or depth or just talent there that, can play at the NFL level, whether that's through the draft or through free agency. I think they'll get another body in there one other way. Because as of right now, you'd have Kayvon Merriweather stepping in as the safety when Tyke moves to the slot, if they're going to do that. Again, Izzian is penciled in as a slot there. As a starter right now, so we'll see how that all plays out. But I really like the Opeta move. Again, he's not guaranteed to make anything. It's not going to change or dictate the Bucs draft plans now that they have Sua Opeta. There are some versatile interior offensive linemen that the Bucs could really like. I dropped one of them in my mock draft that came out yesterday that we'll go over. I'll run through it with you guys and get your thoughts and kind of let me know what you guys' thoughts are. And my first one, I didn't do a trade. This one, I had a couple trades in and trade them out of the first round. But I think for what the Bucs need, it's a better move for them. But again, it's all hypothetical. We'll go over that. But I think Opeta was a right signing, was a right move. Again, coming off a torn ACL, what's he look like? It's he'll be once training camp, he'll be a full year removed, and training. ACLs and Tommy Johns and things of that magnitude have become such a commonplace for guys to come back and really have continue their career at the level they were before. Look no further than Chris Godwin. So, so that was a good signing for the Buccaneers. I don't expect any other moves before the draft. I think that, as I mentioned, that was the last of kind of what they wanted to do, what they wanted to get out of free agency, the first wave at least, and the breadcrumbs there afterwards. We'll go to the draft, reassess. If you look at the roster right now, I believe there are 74 players there. Bucs have 6 picks, brings them up to 80. So they're about 16 players shy of the 90-man offseason roster limit, which if they do stick with 6 picks, you think they'll bring in 10 undrafted free agents. Maybe they make a move here or there with some of the guys that they have on the team if they want to bring somebody else on. But minor moves like that. And then, when we get into OTAs, if they feel like they're lacking or missing something, June 1st, after, teams can make cuts June 1st with it not counting fully towards the cap this year, there might be some other pickups. And same thing. Leonard Fournette was a big one, right? Cut by the Jaguars before camp, picked up by the Bucs. Those things always happen too, and there's additional ways to add to the team. But I think they did a good job bringing Sua Opeta. But he wasn't the only new addition to this team this week, as the Buccaneers have also hired Zach Beistline as the new director of football research. He was spent the last 12 years with the Jags, so you take one, we take one. Bucs got one back. But he was working as an analyst, and most recently, he was the director of game management. And anyone who has watched the Bucs knows that's one thing that Bulls can struggle with at times. To me, that shows tremendous accountability and really how humble he is. The fact that, he's been criticized for it all the way going back to when he was head coach of the Jets. And he's taken the steps to improve. And I thought he's been better since his first year. I think every year he improves. And for him to admit that, hey, I'm struggling with this, I need someone to help me, and to go out and hire someone who has experience and who has done it. It's an entirely new position on the roster. I think it shows a lot of mature. Obviously, he's mature. He's 60-something years. But I think it's a lot of growth that, hey, I am struggling with this. I'm going to get help in the right ways. And I think when you look at some of the situations and that, again, the Commanders game, you go for 3 and not 6, and back to the Detroit game in the playoffs, the season before. There's been plenty of instances you can look at and say, game management wasn't. So for him to go out there and hire someone to help him in that, I think that shows tremendous accountability and growth to understand that, hey, I need to get better in an area. And if these guys are working their butts off to get better in their areas, I need to do the same. So I thought that's a great hire for him. I thought it was a great move. And I thought it spoke volumes on him as a coach and as a person, as a leader, and someone who wants to grow as well. So good moves. So it's 2 good moves to the Bucs this week, headed into the kind of this dead period in between where pro days are going on. We're starting to get all the numbers, and we're starting to get all the measurements, guys who weren't at the combine, some of these later round picks who don't get invited. So you start to kind of build the back end of your board as well. If you're kind of into the draft, obviously I am. I'll be doing my draft preview series. It'll start on April 9th, I believe, and go all the way up until the day of the draft, where the day before I'll every position group I'll detail. Not necessarily I'm not listing Cam Ward. I'm not listing, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, but guys who I think could be in the Bucs range, whether that's in the first round all the way through the end of the draft, or, guys who fit what the Bucs could look for. Last year, I think I nailed 3 of them as far as some of my best fits for the Bucs. I'm hoping to land some more this year. But definitely check those out because they'll all come out. They'll have player breakdowns, individual breakdowns of each player. I think the Bucs have either spoke with. I think they'd be interested in. Remember, Kalijah Cansey 2 years ago, they didn't talk to him at all. And then my best fits for round 1 and 2, round 3 and 4, round 5, or however, some round 1, round 2 and 3, round 4 and I don't know. But I put my best fits out there, and then I'll recap them, and I'll have my final mock the morning of the draft to come out. So I'll have a mock a week coming out. We'll be doing those mock drafts, and the mock draft, I know like people are like, oh, you're just trying to get it right or anything. For me, mock drafts are just to kind of introduce you guys to prospects that the Bucs could be interested in and where they could fall and where they could be drafted. I'm not going to be right on it. There's going to be guys who are overdrafted and undrafted. It happens every single year. There's going to be guys who fans are clamoring for that the Bucs won't even have on their board. They're not even looking at. Jason Light said this much on WDE with T-Kraz on the drive. I believe it was Monday, or Friday. So, we'll do our best to kind of introduce you guys some of the prospects that either fit what the Bucs look for traditionally, or are players who they've met with, whether formally at the combine, informally, where they met them at whether they're at their pro days, whether they're having a 30 visit come in, all those different types of things. Who's coming in a local workout? So we'll all those will be detailed with stats and strengths and weaknesses and whether they've had any communication with the Bucs or not. Last year, I had write-ups for every single player but Bucky Irving because when I looked at Bucky Irving, I saw this small back. And when I spoke to the coaching staff prior that left for Carolina, they really wanted a bigger back, a bruiser back, someone who could take over on goal line and short and goal, fourth and short, third and short. They didn't have that on the roster. So I'm like, they're not going to look for a guy like Bucky Irving. He's soaking wet. He's 180, 5'11", 5'10", 5'9". So he was off my radar for them. And lo and behold, they took him, and thank goodness they did because he was phenomenal. So, but that's kind of how those draft breakdowns will work. Super excited to get those out. Last year, I think I did over 170 of them, probably close to that number, if not more this year. And they come out daily starting on the 9th. It'll be quarterback, running back, inside slot receiver, outside receiver. I'll do slot corner, outside corner, all the way down the line. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy that. Let's say hi to the people here. We got Richard in here. Let's buck and go. Christopher Cole with the evening, sir. Buckin said, I totally forgot about Sua until we re-signed him. Bryce said, I knew they'd bring back Opeta, but was told by an expert Bucs fan they were never bringing him back. Same one that laughed when I put Bucky, Tyke, and Braswell on my mock. I didn't think they're going to bring Opeta back. I'll be honest with you that I thought they looked for more versatility, someone who can play center as well. But again, for the cost, for the price, you kind of know him. He wasn't in the building. We didn't see him like in the locker room a lot, like mid-season. Towards the end, we saw him a little bit more, but it's someone that they're familiar with. And again, he doesn't cost much, and he's not a lock to make the guaranteed to make the roster. The only reason I didn't look at him is because I had them bringing in someone else, someone with center experience. So that's the only reason, because I thought that was a bigger hole. Because I didn't think they'd want to move around their offensive line with moving Bredesen to center, but it seems like they feel comfortable if that's the route they have to go. So I'm for Sua coming back. I'm all for it, but I do think, I think they could have went a different route too, and had someone that has a little bit more experience and someone who's a little more versatile. I like Tristan Colon a lot from Arizona. I played center, played both guard spots. You can kind of do it all. Bryce says, kind of want them to target Jalen Walker and UDFA if he goes undrafted. I'm not at UDFAs yet. I'm still working my way through the draft, but I'll look into him. Let me write him down right now so I can check him out and look into him. Jalen Walker. Where's Jalen? What position? Is that a wide receiver? Jalen Walker. Got it. But yeah, we'll see. Richard said, JC, who's your draft crush this offseason? I've got a few of them. I like Andrew Makuba from Texas. Tate Ratledge is another one. I think everyone's in on Donovan Ezeraku. I do like Kobe Bryant a lot. Noel Williams is another guy I like if they go corner. There's a bunch of them. I like Jaden Higgins a lot. If they want a wide receiver, Xavier Watts is a guy I like a lot too. I think Malachi Starks would be a great fit. There's a lot of, and of course they're, connected to the Bucs, and, that's kind of where my focus is. But, we're talking about another team who's drafting in the top 5. Give me Hunter or Carter all day. But yeah, so it's going to be, we'll see. I didn't get any of my draft crushes on the team last year. I did like McMillan quite a bit, and I did like Barton. I didn't have Barton as one of my fits because I didn't think he was going to be there. I didn't think he was going to last till 25. I had Frazier there. And Frazier, obviously, he was a stud too. So I had Frazier. I think Frazier was in my last mock, and Frazier was my best fit for first round, second round, just because I didn't think Graham Barton was going to be there. The Cowboys stupidly traded back and let the Bucs pick him up. So it was great. So, that's kind of how it goes. We'll see who my draft card. I always pick undrafted free agents I root for too. I remember Ronnie Brown was one of them. Javon Hagan was one of them. Nick Leverett was one of them. He actually, kind of got some playing time. But I usually pick guys. Nolan Smith was another one. There's a lot of safeties there. So, but yeah, we'll see who my UDFA crush is. And, as I dive deeper into the draft, into the specific positions, instead of just kind of going through, whom I think my Bucs fits are going to be. Maybe I'll like somebody else. Maybe there's not even a Bucs fit. So, Bucky and Bryce Young are the same size, maybe an 8-pound difference. It's so funny. John V says, wonder if the same expert that told me Reddick wasn't on a prove it deal. I hope he doesn't have the same first moniker as I do, because people get us confused, and it's like, no. So, but yeah, Reddick is on a prove it deal, and Reddick is probably just on a 1-year deal, to be honest with you. I mean, let's look at it, guys. And people are like, we got defensive ends, right? And I'm kind of the same ilk too. And you'll see when we go over my mock, I didn't draft the defensive end in the first 2 rounds. I don't think I drafted one in the first 4 rounds, edge rusher, because the Bucs, they have Hassan Reddick and they have Yaya Diaby. There's your starters, right? And Diaby's production should go way up. He was one of the top pass rushers in almost every other category besides sacks. Pressure rate, pressures, he was top 15 in almost everything, top 10 in some. He was really good, but he was facing chips, he was facing double teams, he was facing, so now he's not going to have to deal with that because it's on Reddick. I think Reddick will be fine. I think he'll get back to form. But then they just invested a 2nd-round pick in Braswell. Nelly's whatever, because Nelly plays a ton of special teams anyways. But he can still, he's this, you need someone to go in and make a play, a la Carolina, he's there. So I think he's on a 1-year period, because let's say he goes out and has 12, 13 sacks this year. His market is now the market has climbed since he signed. I mean, $40 million. Now he's going to cost you $18 to $20 million per year. And that's on the low end side if he bounces back to form, but he's at 31. Jason, this is part of the pitch. Hey, we reward players who play well for us and fit in and whatever. And I have no doubt he's going to fit in the culture, everything like that. I think that's going to be fine. My question is, do you pay $60 million, $70 million over 3 years for a 31-year-old edge rusher? I don't know if you do. So grabbing one in the first round makes a ton of sense. It just makes a lot of sense. But if they don't, and Jason Light again, his appearance on the drive with T-Kraz, he mentioned, there's a lot of good edge rushers I like in day 1, day 2, you kind of mentioned first, second, third round. So maybe that's a sweet spot. Maybe it's one of those rounds. Maybe they feel like they can go corner, 4th and 5th, and there's still some good prospects, and I'll point those out once we switch over to my mock. But I don't know. We'll see kind of how that all plays out and what the Bucs are thinking there. But I think, it's a prove it deal, but it could just be a 1-year deal, and that's it. They just walk away from Reddick and say, we're not going to pay that much. You're going to be 31 years old. We got 2 young guys waiting in the wings, and you hope that Braswell's ready to take the next step. If you'd grab somebody else, I mean, we'll see. Maybe it's more of a situational guy. We'll see. It's something to monitor, though, because they do like the edge rushers in the first 2 days of the draft. But it's kind of gets tricky with where you put them, because you're going to spend a first round pick on a guy who's going to see, 10 snaps a game, 15 snaps a game. I don't know. Wordborn says Tyler Warren, if he falls to us, to hell with defense. The offense averages over 40 points a game. I'm on the Tyler Warren chain. If he's there, 19, send it in. I'm almost on the Ted McMillan train. If he's there at 19, send it in. Because I think the meat of this draft is in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds, and you can get good guys who can come in and play roles for you in those rounds. So it's going to be interesting. But Tyler Warren, maybe Tet, and I'm there. Sign me up for that. I'll take one of those guys in the first round, even though it's not necessarily a need. But remember, Otten's in the last year of his deal, and while he's ascended as a player, still has never, just went over 50 receptions for the first time in his career. Just went over 500 yards for the first time in his career. Didn't go over hasn't gone over 5 touchdowns yet. And he's on a contract year. And the inflation is here. He's going to cost you about $13, $14 to $15 million a year. Do you want to pay that to Otten next year? Or do you want to have to go into the draft as a whole or pay someone else's cast off? Or you got a guy like Tyler Warren there or Colston Loveland. Do you make that move and say, hey, our offense is even better now? We handled our depth issues on defense. Now let's devote the rest of the draft to defense and get some guys who can come in, be depth, and maybe play some snaps. So be interesting to see how that works. They're going to go best player available. Ty Warren there is a best player available by far. I think Tet would be too. Obviously depending on who's there, but we'll see. Jalen Walker is a linebacker from Indiana. He can go undrafted and still hear his name called in round in the first round. That's good. Hopefully he doesn't get confused. Michael Chavez says, new punter, let's go. Yes, Riley Dixon is in the building. We'll see how that works. Can't be any worse than Jack Browning, Jake Camarda, and whoever the other guy was. Jack Browning put out a video of him punting 55 yards in a hang time of 5 seconds on social media last week. I was like, dude, where was that last year? You're in the middle of the field in the day, no rush, cool. You can punt the ball far. Didn't do it in the game. I don't know what it was going to be like. See that video and be like, oh wow, we got to bring him in, this kid, and not look at last year's tape and be like, oh yeah, probably not. But yeah, Riley Dixon should be an upgrade. It'll be interesting to see his numbers, although I feel like he did have a better percentage away than he did at home. Maybe had a little bit further distance, but hang time, I think, and net was better away. Obviously, he's leaving Colorado Rocky Mountain Air for Tampa Bay Sea Level, so we'll see if that makes a difference. But he did punt twice in that week 3 contest, and he did pretty well. So it's a good signing. They still have Jake Julian on the roster, the CFL Special Teams Award winner of the year. Again, they didn't really guarantee much to Riley Dixon. They give him 2 years at $6 million. But I mean, if it's a situation where someone beats him out, I mean, it's a punter. You're not going to sweat. You're not going to sweat it. King Buck says, Oh, Ward Burns says Tyler Warren, Benjamin Morrison, Princely, Human Alien, dream scenario in the top 100. I like Princely. I just don't know if the Bucs are high on Princely. Benjamin Morrison, obviously coming off the injury, those hips. He didn't have super fluid hips to begin with, but he can make plays on the ball. I think he's certainly going to be someone that they look at in the second round if he's there, if they stay there. Cornerback under Notre Dame. They did have a formal meeting with him at the combine. I expect they probably will bring him in for a top official 30 visit just to get their doctors to get an eye on him medically and stuff like that. I think you'll see that with a couple people. Jihad Campbell, too, after the shoulder surgery. Siobhan Ravel is another name I expect them, not reporting, but I expect them to bring in just to make sure medicals, their doctors get a look at him, stuff like that. So those guys, I think they'll have a lot of those guys with medical concerns in here, as far as just kind of letting their doctors get a peek at them. King Buck says, please tell me you took a corner in round 1. Will Johnson. Will Johnson has fallen in some mocks. And if Will Johnson's there at 19, then you take him. I don't see that being a possibility. I think if you want a corner and Will Johnson is there, he's going to be the BPA. Most likely, unless you get a crazy scenario where Ty Warren's there and maybe Ted McMillan's there, and maybe Donovan Ezaraku and Jihad Campbell. At that point, you trade back because you got 4 or 5 players. You can get someone to trade back with you 2-3 spots, pick up a 6th and a 4th or whatever. The 6th that you don't have and a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick, extra picks in that meat potatoes of the draft. I think you do it. But if he's there and none of those guys are there, you run that up. I think you do. Richard's popular mocks have Bucs picking linebacker Jihad Campbell. Thoughts on that? Love, hate, man. I like Jihad Campbell. I know not everybody does because he seems like this kind of tweener position. And obviously now with a shoulder injury, probably going to miss all of rookie minicamp, OTAs minicamp, maybe be back sometime for training camp, which is if you're counting on this guy, having him missing all training camp is some growing pains. And we saw that 2 years ago with Kalijah, right? Missed all training camp, came back out, re-injured it that first week, and then missed the next 4 games. Well, and then it came out like a bat out of hell. But Kalijah is a different being. And Jihad Campbell is too, to an extent. He's probably a top 10 player in this draft who won't get drafted as high because he's a linebacker. Unless you just have someone who's like, hey, he's not a linebacker. He's a chess piece. I'm going to move him at edge, move him at linebacker. And Bowles will do that too, I think, with Jihad Campbell. I would love it at 19. I think it's great value too. Like I said, I think he is probably higher rated prospect, but the board will push him down a little bit. I think he'd be a tremendous pick for the Bucs and lock up your inside linebacker spot for years to come, especially if Dennis is the answer. Because you'd start the season with Dennis, likely with Campbell, and then maybe work him in, and maybe that's your tandem right there is Dennis and Campbell. Because I do think Dennis is finally healthy. That shoulder injury that's bothered him the last 2 years is cleared up. He's had plenty of time to rehab. I think he's going to come back stronger than ever. Again, and his coverage ability is something that people talk about. But remember, when he was coming out of the draft, no one was talking about his coverage ability. It was all about his blitzing ability. Like 7 sacks his senior year with Kalijah Cansey. He was a demon. Like that was the question. Can he cover? He comes out first day of rookie minicamp with a 1-handed interception. Like maybe he can. And he's shown it nothing but sense. So I know they really like Servassier Dennis and want him to be the starter. But that won't influence them in round 1, 2, 3. We've already heard about a 30 visit with Demetrius Knight Jr., a linebacker out of South Carolina, who's one of these do-it-all, great athleticism. We'll get into that after I run through your comments and a quick little ad read. But we'll get into some of the top 30 visits they're having and stuff like that. Ward Burns says Jihad Campbell has terrible instincts. Another Devin White. No thanks. Don't sleep on Servassier. I'm not sleeping. I think Campbell has. I think he's got better instincts than what some people think. And I just think he's a playmaker. He can do a little bit of everything, and I think that's what you're looking for. John says, love EZ. I think Ezaraku is number 1 in a lot of Bucs fans' hearts right now. The production, and they see Shaq Barrett, right? Smaller size, but guy just is relentless. Has production. Doubt him all you want. I think he will be there. What do you think of Xavier Watts? I'll get into that, King Buck, in my mock draft here in a minute. Bryce said, I also kind of want Knight Jr. if he's there in the second. I know he's 25, but he's NFL day one, right? I agree. He's mature. He's got a family. He's settled down. Like he's coming in. He's playing football. That's what he's going to do. And I think he'd fit perfectly in the room. I also think Chris Poo Paul from Ole Miss. I think he'd be an absolute perfect fit for the Bucs. There's some, limitations in his game as well. He's looking like he might be a 3rd round pick instead of a 2nd round pick, depending on where you're looking, what site, whatever. But I think he'd be a tremendous addition too, as a guy who can do everything: cover, blitz, handle the run. He can struggle to disengage from blocks here sometimes, but I think he'd be a tremendous pick for them too. And again, just really mature, and that's what the Bucs are looking for. I am that man. Remember, there's some kids who are already off the Bucs draft board because of character issues. They're just not going to take a chance, and they haven't taken a chance in the last couple of years, and it's worked out. So stick to the game plan. Richard said, "I'm just afraid Bucs pick Campbell, but then Schweshlinger is a better linebacker after rookie year." So there's a lot with Swesh that goes into it too. 1-year starter. He is a little undersized for the position. He's a dog. He's got that mentality. We'll get into him a little bit because I'm going to pull up my mock draft, and 2 of the guys you just asked about, I have. Bryce says, if he has Davis longevity, who is 35, we could potentially get about a decade out of him and still not need a linebacker with a 4th year in a row. I think you're talking about Knight Jr. Yeah. So, right. If he's that guy, then he's that guy. Again, where he goes is a question mark right now, because it could be as early in the 2nd round, or it could be mid-2nd round. The age could push him back a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. All right, I'm going to pull my mock here in a minute. Before we do that, I do want to take a second to thank one of our sponsors here, Fango. Fango Tickets, your number one source for live events in Tampa Bay. Locally owned and operated. Check out Fango, guys. They literally are owned and operated out of St. Pete, but they've got clear and transparent prices on their website. You look at what they're showing you what they're going to pay, what you're going to pay for the tickets, what the seller is getting, what the taxes and fees are, and what their profit is. It shows that all to you. And I went to bought my first tickets off Fango 2 months ago, brought my son to go see the Messi game, and by far they were the cheapest out of any other sites around. Again, they're locally owned and operated. They're partnering with some amazing things. Hat Tricks is one of the things they're partnering, companies they're partnering with, some hotels, some different things that you can just enhance your whole vacation package. Check them out. You're looking to go opening day on Friday, check them out. They've got opening day tickets cheap. If you're a wrestling fan, they got wrestling. They got, concert tickets. So much stuff is going on over at Fango. Lightning tickets. Check them out. You won't be disappointed. Again, full transparency with everything they do. And they've got, again, I've checked all the major ones that charge you taxes and fees. I checked all the other ones that have them rolled in. Cheapest by far. And I'm not talking like $2. I'm talking like $5 to $10. And when you're buying 4 tickets, $10 adds up real quick. $10 is 4 beers in the park. Come on, guys. So it adds up quickly. So check out Fango for sure. Before I bring up the mock, another thing I want to do is just shout out again there. We'll pick them back up towards the fall when the next one is announced. But Bucs Cruise, it was such an amazing time, guys. I've been telling you to get on it. Start tucking money away because you're not going to want to miss year 4 of the Buccaneers Cruise. It was such a blast. So many different players on there, fans from all around the country, around the world. I met people from Ireland. I met people from Germany. I met people from England, London, Great Britain, whatever you want to call it. So many different people on there. O-Town was there, which was crazy. I went live. I'm going to show you some of my live clips. I'm not going to get into all of them, but I'll show you some of my live clips just to kind of show you what it's like, what the atmosphere is like, especially when you do these meet and greet parties. You've got time to kind of talk to these players one-on-one and, shoot the breeze with them and get to know them. And there's always jokes and games. You can gamble with them. You get down there. I don't recommend it if you didn't save for it. It goes quick. But yeah, it's a great time. So let me show you one of the videos I have right now. Let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, boom. I'm gonna share it right now. We're live here on the Buccaneers Cruise. Say hi to Dexter Jackson, MVP.
What's up, man?
How
y'all doing? All right. Y'all doing well? We're just hanging out, chilling.
You're having FOMO right now. Fear of missing out. You got to be on the cruise next year. We're here. We're doing it on the Bucs Cruise. Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Yeah, y'all need to get out here next year. This Bucs Cruise is live. It's lit. It's having a good time. I'm going to bring you in to the Buccaneers party. But first, I'm going to introduce you to some Buccaneer royalty. His name is Jimmy Giles, tight end for the Buccaneers. You know him. You know him.
What's going on, baby?
How we doing?
You're a little late, but the party's still going.
You're live on Twitter right now. You're live on Twitter. Tell them how much you need to get out here for the Bucs Cruise next year.
Hey, let's get here. We're having fun, baby.
Absolutely. How was golf the other day? Woo! Jimmy Giles. You know, Jimmy Giles, we don't mess around here. When we're on the Bucs Cruise, you guys need to get out here. It's a fabulous time. We got Tawny right here. She runs the place over here. Celebrity Cruise is the best.
Bro,
The amenities, everything is amazing. Y'all got to get out here. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss this. The party's wrapping up right now, but we'll be back at it later because we got a special performance by O-Town. O-Town, if you're a 90s baby, you know who O-Town is. We're walking around. This is a party. Check out the atmosphere. You got a bar.
this was towards the end of the party.
Right here. If you're not at this party next year, I don't know what you're doing. Don't make a scene. Don't make a scene. It's just Jamel Dean. Jamel Dean, say hi to the folks on Twitter. You're live.
Oh, what, we're going live?
We're
Hey,
live
guys,
on Twitter.
this is Jamel. Don't make him see himself, Dean.
Yeah. Tell them. They got to get out here next year, right? Let me get a Tampa. Oh, y'all got to get out here. Y'all know what you're missing. This is the best place over here. Everywhere. It's awesome. The cruise is so much fun. We got Julie right here. She runs it too right here. Julie, say hi. You're on Twitter Live. Julie, you're on Twitter Live. Say hi. Tell people get in the Bucs Cruise. Let's go, 2025. I know you heard there's a train coming. It's the A train. Mike, you're live on Twitter. Tell people to get here next year what they're missing. We got Mike A Train All-Star in the building. It's crazy. Some of the other players have left. They'll be back. Again, we got O-Town later tonight. Last day of the cruise. Y'all need to get out here. Cody Mock, Luke Gedeke, Graham Barton. So many players were out here. So many people were out here. Brian Ford, COO. It's a great time. Get out on the Bucs Cruise. I'll be live a little bit for an O-Town concert. Some Bucs players. We got to get here next year. Wow. Peace.
Just a little under the influence there, guys. Let me play you one more, and then we'll get into the mock draft. Guys are so great too. Hopefully this doesn't lose my spot here, because it was very difficult scrolling all the way back to this date. Okay, no, we're here. All right, let's show you guys this one too. This was a funny one. The guys are
awesome.
great.
We got Graham Barton, we got Cody Mott, we got Luke Gedeke. Boys, tell these are missing on this Bucs Cruise and why they need to get out here next year.
Yeah, come to Bucs Cruise. It's a great time. Get to all hang out and go around the Bahamas and have some fun.
Yeah, you can watch Graham Barton try to hit a volleyball and epically miss.
Oh man,
I do recall Luke Gedeke losing his team the game today by hitting one into the net. That did happen.
Oh, rebuttal?
Yeah, Graham, I think, got about 20 to 30 points scored on him.
On the winning team, by the way.
He looked like a fish out of water. He's a big me guy.
Oh man, only in volleyball though, not for the Bucs. Yeah, he's a team guy. Guys, get to the Bucs Cruise. You got players like this hanging out here all weekend long. You guys gotta get back out here. Tony, we'll be live. You guys hanging around for O-Town later?
We'll see.
Coming for
Yeah,
O-Town?
the band.
Yeah, the band, O-Town. We got O-Town, Silent Disco. I was trying to get these guys. I was trying to get them to Silent Disco.
This guy right here.
You don't know him, but if Ben Bredesen leaves, that's your starting left guard right now. Guys, get on the Bucs Cruise. This is an amazing time. The guys are great. It's great to get to know them as people, not just players. Again, spontaneous side because there's players everywhere. There's people everywhere. Y'all know, if y'all on Twitter, y'all know who this is. Y'all know who this is. We're doing it live out here. Get on the Bucs Cruise next year. It's going to be bigger, better than ever. They went from 4 days to 3 days, but somehow it's still even better than last year. Get on the cruise next year. I'll be back live in a little bit. Peace out. You know what it is.
Yeah, so to say I was a little under the influence would be an understatement there. Appreciate you guys for watching that, sticking around. But yeah, I think Bucs Cruise is an amazing time. You guys need to get out there. Plain and simple. It is so much fun. So definitely check that out. Let's get into some of these guys who they're bringing in for visits, top 30 visits. We have Demetrius Knight Jr. was one of them from South Carolina. Oregon, Nico, why can't I think of his name right now? I just posted about it. The other one was reported today, Kansas State cornerback Jacob Parrish. He was there at the same time Josh Hayes was there. The other one was Nico Reed, cornerback from Oregon. So 3 guys have been reported so far that are going to come in and take 30 visits with the team. When you look at Jacob Parrish, he seems to be more of like a slot guy, someone who can play, move inside, has some outside experience, but definitely someone who features more in the slot. He's about 5'10", I think 100, and he's light. I can tell you that. But he's nasty. He's not afraid to get his nose dirty. He does need to work on kind of tackling a little bit. He's not a bad tackler. He only had 5 missed tackles last year. Sometimes he can just kind of be a little bit unreliable in that aspect. And I know that doesn't sound great, but super fast, ran the 40 in 4.35 and was mad about that. But as long as he can stick to, be consistent with tackling, I think he's a guy who can be a starting nickel cornerback in this league. He can, he's got a really strong football IQ. He doesn't lack effort, coming downhill. He's obviously, again, 5'10", 198, but he's feisty. And he'll come hit you in the mouth. And he'll be the last guy you think that's going to come hit you in the mouth. So he's the guy I think the Bucs, if they're looking for more of a nickel cornerback, is definitely someone who they could target. And I wouldn't be surprised. But there's that whole area. He's projected to go 3rd, 4th round. You can start a lot of those guys, Dorian Strong, Jacob Parrish, Kobe Bryant, Mello Dotson, not as much Mello Dotson, but Noel Williams, Zy Alexander, Quincy Riley. All those guys are people that they could really kind of look at to either come in and play, outside in the case of like Strong and, Noel Williams and even Kobe Bryant, or play inside in a case like Parrish or Quincy Riley, and even Kobe Bryant can play inside too. So, they've got options, as far as the 4th round. Obviously, everyone knows the names in the 1st and 2nd with Benjamin Morris and Nazare Thomas, Darian Porter, Siobhan Ravel, Maxwell Harrison, Trey Amos, Will Johnson, Jody Barron. They're not getting Travis Hunter, but all those guys, if they decide to wait, those guys are all there and potentially available. So, them looking at corners is not a surprise. Again, them looking at linebacker with a guy like Demetrius Knight Jr. from South Carolina. He won't be the first. He's the first, but he won't be the last to be reported on a top 30. He is projected to go early in the 2nd round right now, but again, he is 25, super mature. Again, he's got his family already. He's a sound tackler. He's not gonna miss many tackles, and he's gonna get a lot of run stops. He can drop in coverage. I mean, if you look at his pass rush grade last year as pass rusher, 78.5 pass rush grade, 85.4 run defense grade, 74.9 coverage grade. He can do a little bit of everything. 2 forced incompletions. He had an interception. Played in the box, can play, kind of play in the slot if the tight end moves in there and keep up with them. He's a guy who I think would be a great fit as an off-ball linebacker. He loves the game. It's important to him. He's super smart with a fast processor, good instincts. He can be over-aggressive, but you can work on that. You can't work on his age. You can't work on his over-aggressiveness. You can work on his over-aggressiveness, but everything else, to me, screams like he'd be a great fit for the Bucs. The age is the one thing that kind of hangs you up, right? It's 25 years old. But I think he'd be a great fit. Nico Reed, I'm still learning about. I don't know a ton about him, and he's on my list of cornerbacks to look at. I've been kind of going down the line in order, but since they brought him in for a 30 visit, he's someone I definitely need to look at a little bit closer. From people that I've talked to that have studied him, they really like his ability around the ball. So he's someone that, I've got to look at a little bit better. I'm trying to bring him up now. Trying to bring him up now so I can give you guys a idea of what he's about. But we'll see if that happens. In the meantime, let's bring up my mock draft. We've got about 15 minutes. Let's roll through that. Any questions you guys have, any comments you guys have, drop them in there. We'll get to those too. But let's go over my mock draft here that I did. This dropped yesterday. Again, this is them moving around the board. The first one I did was pretty straightforward, where they didn't move around the board at all. They just stuck where they were and made those picks. I've got too many tabs open. This is the problem when you're doing draft research and free agency research, is you've got so many tabs open. Everything just moves that much slower. Give me a second. I'll pull it up here for you guys. But I did have them trade back out of the first round into the second round. The haul was worth it, though, I feel like. When you got what the Bucs got, they were able to secure 2 second-round draft picks to move back. And when you look at everyone looked at the trade charts there. I think the Jimmy Johnson one is the one that a lot of people go by, but Draft Tech has 2 different ones, more of like an updated one that some of the league is using, more of a older one that not all the league is using. Let's see. I think I've got it working here now. Let's bring it up. All right, are we good? We got it, Shane? All right, we got it. We got it here. So big trade. The Bucs trade their first round pick number 19 to the Bears for second round picks number 39 and number 41. Again, either the guys aren't there that the Bucs want, or they just feel like there's more. Again, the second round, you can get some real playmakers there, I feel like. Maybe not. And again, this isn't a draft that has like top tier talent. There's like maybe 10, maybe 15 tops true first round draft picks. The rest of these guys are just filling in the first round. And that's not to say they can't be first round talent. It's just that's kind of the way it is. There's just not high end blue chip caliber players deep into this draft. But there are a lot of good players. So, the Bears, they've spent a lot of money on their offensive line, a lot of draft picks on their offensive line. They've got Caleb Williams. They've got 2 really good wide receivers there. They've added to the defense as well. It feels like they're trying to make a run now. Ben Johnson isn't one that's like, oh, we're a couple years away. Let's just kind of, I feel like if a team moves, the Bears are a team to watch, especially if they pass on Ashton Genty, or he goes before them and they draft another position. And then, no, I don't think he's going to be there at 19. No way in heck. But Omarion Hampton or one of these other running backs they like. Because if you look behind the Bucs, those teams need running backs. You're talking about the Broncos, the Cowboys, or Cowboys are ahead of them. But there's teams behind them, that could use a running back. And I think to get ahead of some of those teams, at the shot at some of these running backs, they can make the trade. So with that first pick, I've got them going Shavon Ravel, the corner from East Carolina. I think he would be a first round draft pick, probably a top 15. If he didn't suffer the ACL, he was trending that way before the season. You saw his name was at high up on the corner boards, along with Benjamin Morrison, some of these other guys who are still there now. But he's got the size, speed, length the Bucs look for. His athleticism, his recovery speed, his physical and run support, willing to get his nose dirty coming down. But again, he's only 1 year starting experience in the ACC. But he's got skills and 2 interceptions and a pick 6, 15 pass this year, 15 pass deflections in his 2 years. He met with the Bucs formally. He's a guy who I just think fits the bill for them. But I think the first round 19 is too early. Now they could trade back a couple spots and deem him worthy there. but I think you can move back into the second round to get him. Xavier Watts, another guy I like. Someone asked about him. Kind of preface it here by Tyke's moving back in the slot. We've talked about that, moving the safety from the slot. When he moves back down there, they're going to need somebody. Xavier Watts, he's a guy who is versatile, can do a lot of the same things that Tyke and Antoine, and that would give a lot of interchangeability, a lot of versatility to Bowles on the back end. He's 13 interceptions and 14 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles over the last 2 seasons. Knows how to attack the ball. Tremendous football IQ, great anticipation. Again, tackling, you hate to hear that with the Bucs woes and tackling, but tackling is something that kind of needs to be refined. It improved last year, but technique certainly needs refining. But I think he'd be a great pick for the Bucs there too. We roll into sticking at the second round with the Bucs pick. Carson Schwechlinger from UCLA, 6'2", 242, a little bit undersized there. Bucs go back-to-back defensive picks. He's got someone mentioned Campbell's instincts and had questions about them. That's not a problem with Schwechlinger. His instincts, his play recognition. He sees the lineup and he knows what's coming. Film study is a big reason part of that. He's really into that. He knows how to avoid oncoming blockers and kind of weave through the holes to find the ball carrier instead of getting swallowed up. And when he makes tackle, he doesn't miss. But he's not a sideline. He's not a Devin White sideline to sideline. He's got good athleticism. Will definitely make plays in coverage. He'll be on if he doesn't win the job from Dennis. Then he definitely has special teams ability. He was standout there. Last year, he had 136 tackles in his lone season starting, 9 for loss, 4 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 2 interception, and a forced fumble. And he met with the Bucs at the combine formally. So he's a guy who I think you come out of the first 2, you make a move like this, you come out of the first 2 rounds, really only one because you only have one, with Revel, Watts, and Schwechlinger. I think you are in a really good position. And then maybe you can pivot to the offensive side of the ball. And I have another trade here. Bucs giving up 84 to the Jags for 88 and 142. It's about like 3 points off. But again, Jags are moving up. You're going to pay a little bit more, and you owe us one. So they moved back. I looked at wide receiver here. I didn't see, there are some guys who I liked, but not enough that I liked more than Tate Ratledge, who can play. He's the right guard, but once you get him in the league, I think he can play all across the line. He practiced center, some at the bowl games, at the Pro Bowl games that he was at, all pro game, whatever you want to call them, all-star games. But he's one of the best pass protectors in the game. He's big, 6'6", 308, 3 years as a starter, just 2 sacks, part of 2 national championship teams. He knows the culture. Obviously, he knows Tyke Smith. He's got a nasty demeanor, finishing blocks. He's going to bring you right down to the whistle. And again, I think he can provide that versatility on the interior, although right guard is where he's made his bread and butter. I think third round for a guy who can play all across the line and potentially maybe unseat Bredesen as a left guard. He's only got 3 years on his deal, and it's really just your deal. I think he'd be a heck of a fit in the third round, even with Sua Opeta. I still think they could look at offensive line as early as that third round. So I like him a lot. He's one of my draft crutches, as well as Kobe Bryant. And the Bucs double up here on cornerback, 3 secondary players taken already. They double up. They signed 2 in free agency. They draft 2. Bryant, he's got the height, the weight, 6'1", 180. Not the height, the weight, but the length rather. The height, the length, 6 foot, 180. He's a small guy. He's got to bulk up, but the competitor in him. He's like a little chihuahua. He's fiercest competitor, not afraid to come down. He's actually really good coming downhill in run support, and a strong tackler. He's also a playmaker, though, too. 13 career interceptions, 2 pick sixes, 3 forced fumbles, 22 pass breakups. He's not a guy who you're going to line up man-to-man coverage on the outside. He can play outside, but at his size, you can also see him being moved inside as well. He played a lot of zone coverage. A lot of off-zone coverage and played in the slot. So he had a formal interview with the Bucs. I think if you are looking to bring someone in to maybe challenge Jamel Dean on the outside or be an heir apparent replacement, whatever. I think Ravel gives you that. And you're looking to challenge somebody on the inside, give yourself a layer of protection. I think Kobe Bryant gives you that, and he can play outside. So that versatility, I think, will be huge. And I think that's, if you look at one of the ways that they go in this draft where they're double dipping at a position, I think that's what you're going to see. Like if they take 2 safeties, I don't think they will, but if they take a guy who's, Kevin Winston Jr. is more that strong safety, and they come back a little later for a guy who's more of maybe like a safety nickel type, like a big nickel, I can see that happening. Into the 5th round, now I take my edge rusher, and I take David Walker. Again, undersized for what the Bucs look for, 6'1", 263, but there is no denying this dude's production. And again, I prefaced it earlier, you brought Hassan Reddick, Anthony Nelson, you got Yaya Diaby ready to break out, Chris Braswell, could they go earlier? Definitely think so. Definitely. For this mock, for this exercise, I had them. My first mock was Donovan Ezaraku at 19. This mock, I have them waiting until the 5th round. He's undersized but explosive, lives in the backfield, 68 tackles, 10.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles last season, and one of the highest pass rush win rates in the country. He's not a slouch as a run defender. Not going to give you anything in coverage. Again, he's got good hand usage, array of pass rush moves, and a plan that he puts together. He's going to be a situational pass rusher. He's not someone that you're going to count on starting, but third down, and you put this guy in. He's got the tools to get to the quarterback. He's got the speed to get to the quarterback, and he's got the will to get to the quarterback. And I think in the 5th round, if you can get a guy like that who you're putting in on third down, it's a good grab, good pick, and a good spot to grab that in. Plus, it doesn't disrupt any flow for the development of a guy like Chris Braswell. Gives you depth. He'll battle out Marquise Watson, Jose Ramirez for the last spot on the roster. Maybe another undrafted free agent, because now both of those guys are Ramirez was a 7th round pick, I think. Watts was an undrafted free agent, so those guys aren't guaranteed. 5th round from that draft, the move that we made, actually, that was from the move we made via the Jaguars, David Walker, or this one was, I'm not sure. Either one. Pat Bryant, wide receiver. The Bucs have said that they want to look at wide receivers in this draft. Pat Bryant, 6'2", 204. He's not going to blow anyone away or mistake anyone with a burner. He does not have that type of speed, but what he is he's a versatile guy who can play inside, outside. Again, no block, no rock. This guy thrives blocking. He loves blocking. And he's that classic possession receiver. He's got a big frame, strong hands, good catch radius, knows how to use it. He's not going to run away from guys, but has really good football IQ, understanding of leverage and route running. He's got a really good release that can give him some separation. Again, separation is the big thing, right? How's he going to separate against other guys? I think he's better than David Bell at this point, who I think went in like the 3rd round. But again, a similar type of player, a possession guy. Tyler Johnson, David Bell, possession type of receiver who's going to be your 5th receiver, play some special teams, maybe 6th receiver, and who, when come in, he can make some plays for you. 54 passes, 954 yards, 10 touchdowns, a little bit of end arounds as well. Again, high point receiver, excellent contested catches, and bring some size into a small receiver room at 6'2". So another guy that I like there if they look for wide receiver later in the draft. And then Junior Tafuna, again, they met with all these guys formally at the combine. Tate Rowledge was the only one that was an informal, but Junior Tafuna, again, another guy they met with. Deep defensive tackle draft, and I think you can get someone in the 7th, 6th, 5th round that's going to be good. That because it's so deep, those would probably be, bumped up a round or 2 higher, because it's a deep draft for defensive tackle. And you're like, well, why would they wait so long to take one? And it's just kind of the way the board falls. I'm looking at scenarios where in the 1st round, do they take one? Could they take one in the 2nd or the 3rd round? So it's just it's going to depend on how the board falls. And again, they have they brought back Greg Gaines, CJ Brewer, Mike Green, Adam Gottstis, who signed on late, who they liked. But Logan Hall is on a the final year of his deal. Do they look for someone to come in there? Do they look for someone who's a little bit bigger and stouter in size to play nose tackle? And there's EJ Biggers is one of those guys. So there's different types of players who I think will intrigue them, and we'll see. Again, defensive tackle is something I haven't dived super into. the later guys I kind of know. Tonka Hemingway was a guy I had in my first draft, but he's a former linebacker. His quick step, active hands to disengage from blockers, good lateral quickness, and the ability to move down the line and pursue ball carriers. But I think he only has like 3 sacks total in his college career. His measurables aren't, great for what you want, but there's good athleticism there. Developmental player, fit early down rotation, third down, just tell him to go. First or second down, late game situations where they might be passing or something like that. He's a good run. He's good in run support too, but he's just a developmental guy. There he's bringing down Caleb Williams. But that's it. I think when you look at the Bucs could go in a myriad of ways. We can stop screen now. The Bucs could go in a myriad of ways in the draft, and it's going to be fun to kind of see who they bring in for 30 and see how this board, see what they're thinking and how things start stacking up. But keep it tuned here. I'll have a mock draft every week. We're gonna get some big guns in here. We'll get Trevor Sikkema in. We'll get Dane Brugler in to talk mock. We're working on some other guys too. Then we'll start to get some players in after the draft. Get those guys back in here once they're back in the area doing off-season workouts. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in. As always, another great show. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you're on X, pop over here. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Everyone listening after, appreciate you. Before we say goodbye, I want to say a big thank you to our partners over at Mosley Heating and Air. When Florida hits hard, heat hits hard, trust Mosley Heating and Air to keep you cool and comfortable. With over 25 years of experience, their family-owned business knows what it takes to keep your home's HVAC system running smoothly. I need a repair, a new system, or maintenance plan, they've got you covered. Call Mosley Heating and Air at 813-230-3742 or visit mosleyheatingandair.com. Mosley Heating and Air, where comfort meets reliability. But that's going to do it for today. I appreciate everybody. We'll be back next Wednesday at 7 o'clock with more to talk about. Maybe we'll do another live mock draft. We'll get guests in here. We'll figure out who you guys want. If you guys want to see someone in here, let me know. Shoot me a DM. I'll try to make it happen, and we'll go from there. But appreciate everyone tuning in to another edition of the Pirate Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network. As always, I'm JC Allen, your host, saying out. Peace. See you guys later.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.